The council chamber existed in a space that defied normal physics. Gravity pulled in 6 different directions, depending on where a species needed it to pull. The walls shimmered with colors that most humans could not see, broadcasting emotional states of the 12,000 representatives gathered in the enormous spherical room. Ambassador David Kane floated in the center, held in place by a gravity well that felt like standing on solid ground, even though nothing visible supported him. He had been standing there for 3 hours. The aliens were trying to make him uncomfortable. They succeeded, but not in the way they expected. David's legs ached and his back hurt, but his mind remained sharp. He studied every representative within his field of vision, noting which species fidgeted, which remained still, which watched him with what he had learned to recognize as curiosity rather than contempt. "Hi," Chancellor Vorneth finally spoke. The being looked like a mantis crossed with a dragon, covered in scales that shifted between purple and black. His voice came through the translation field as a deep rumble that vibrated in David's chest. "Human Ambassador Kane, you stand accused of violating the expansion protocols. Your species has established colonies in 47 systems without council approval. You have deployed military vessels in neutral zones. You have refused to submit your technological databases for council review. How do you answer these charges?" David took a slow breath. Back on Earth, 2 billion people watched this transmission. The fate of humanity's place in the galaxy rested on what he said next. "I answer with a question, Chancellor. When did Earth request permission to join the Galactic Council?" Silence fell across the chamber. Several aliens made sounds that the translators interpreted as confused murmurs. Vorneth's scales darkened to full black. "Earth never requested membership. That is precisely the problem. You expanded into council space without authorization, without paying tribute, without acknowledging our authority. Then how can we violate protocols we never agreed to follow?" David kept his voice calm and clear. "Humanity discovered faster-than-light travel independently. We found uninhabited systems and settled them. We encountered other species and established trade relationships. At no point did anyone inform us that we needed permission from a council we did not know existed." "Ignorance is not an excuse," declared Ambassador Kess. A being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of crystalline light. Her species, the Trilari, were known for their mastery of time. The Council has governed this galaxy for 90,000 years. All spacefaring species eventually learn of our existence and submit to our authority. Submit. David, let the word hang in the air. Is that what membership in the Council means? Submission? It means order, Vorneth said. It means preventing chaos. Your species appeared seemingly overnight, spreading across the stars like a plague. You build stations without approval. You trade without licenses. You create technologies without submitting them for safety review. You are a rogue element that threatens the stability of the entire galactic civilization. David nodded slowly. I understand your concern. Humanity did expand quickly. We did operate independently. But I asked the Council to consider why we were able to do these things. He gestured at the massive chamber around him. You have 12,000 member species. You have existed for 90,000 years. You have technologies that humanity can barely comprehend. And yet, somehow, we appeared in your galaxy and established ourselves before you even noticed we were here. Does that not suggest something? It suggests you are sneaky and dangerous, growled Ambassador Rax, who resembled a bipedal bear covered in metallic fur. Or it suggests that your council has grown complacent, David replied. 90,000 years is a long time. Perhaps too long. Perhaps the systems that once kept the galaxy safe have become bureaucratic rituals. Perhaps the civilization you are trying to protect has already begun to stagnate. The chamber erupted. Thousands of voices spoke at once in hundreds of languages. The translation field struggled to keep up, creating a cacophony of overlapping sounds. Vornith slammed a resonance staff against the floor, and the sound wave it produced silenced everyone instantly. You dare insult this council? Vornith's scales had turned blood red. You stand accused of crimes, and you respond with arrogance? I respond with truth, David said. The council calls humanity rogue, but we are not trying to overthrow your government or conquer your worlds. We simply want to exist and grow. If that threatens you, perhaps the problem is not with humanity. Perhaps the problem is that the council has forgotten how to adapt to change. Kess floated closer to David, her crystalline form pulsing with light. I have looked at the timelines, human. I have seen what happens when species like yours are allowed to expand, unchecked. War, destruction, the collapse of civilizations. We have seen it before. We will not see it again. Then let me propose an alternative, David said. He reached into his jacket. Instantly, weapons powered up throughout the chamber. Energy fields crackled to life around David, ready to vaporize him if he made a threatening move. David slowly withdrew a data tablet and held it up. This contains a complete record of every human colony, every station, every ship, every technological advancement we have made in the 300 years since we left Earth. I am authorized to share all of it with the Council. Complete transparency. Vornith's eyes narrowed. Why would you do this? Because humanity wants to join the galactic community, David said. Not as conquered subjects or supervised children. As equals, as partners. We offer everything we know, everything we have built, in exchange for a seat at this council. Not submission, cooperation. The chamber fell silent again. David could see the representatives looking at each other, communicating through methods he could not perceive. The weight of 12,000 civilizations, considering humanity's fate, pressed down on him like a physical force. Ambassador Rax stood from his position. The human offers trinkets and expects a throne. What could your species possibly have that we need? We who have explored the stars for 90 millennia? David smiled. It was not a friendly expression. You would be surprised, Ambassador. But I am not going to list our accomplishments like a merchant hawking wares. Instead, I will tell you what happens if you reject our offer. You threaten us? Vornith's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. No, I inform you. David gestured at the data tablet. If the Council refuses humanity's partnership, we will leave. We will withdraw to our own corner of the galaxy. We will establish our own sphere of influence, our own trade networks, our own alliances with species who are not part of your council. And eventually, in 100 years or 1,000, there will be 2 major powers in this galaxy instead of 1. Is that what you want? Kess's light pulsed rapidly. You would divide the galaxy? You would divide it by rejecting us, David countered. Humanity is here. We are not going away. The only question is whether we are inside your civilization or outside it, whether we are friends or rivals. The choice is yours. Vornith studied David for a long moment. The Council will deliberate. You will wait outside, of course. David bowed slightly. A gesture of respect that was also a reminder that he could choose to show respect rather than being forced to give it as the gravity well released him, and he floated toward the exit. David heard Kess speak quietly to Vornith. The human is right about one thing. They are not like the other young species we have encountered. They think strategically. They plan for the long term. That is exactly why they are dangerous, Vornith replied. David stepped through the portal and found himself in a waiting chamber. His assistant, a young woman named Rita, rushed over to him. How did it go? She asked. David sat down heavily. They are going to reject us. Rita's face fell. You are certain? I have spent 3 months studying the Council's history. Every time they encountered a species that challenged their authority, they crushed it. They will see our offer not as partnership, but as defiance. David closed his eyes. We are going to have to implement Protocol 7. Rita went pale. Sir, that will change everything. For everyone. I know. David opened his eyes and looked at the closed portal that led back to the council chamber. But they need to learn that humanity is not like the other species they have dominated. We do not conquer through force. We do not submit to threats. We create value so essential that removing us becomes unthinkable. And if they do not realize that until it is too late? David stood and straightened his jacket. Then the galaxy is about to learn a very expensive lesson about what happens when you take humanity for granted. Inside the council chamber, the deliberation had already begun. And the vote, as David predicted, was going exactly as he feared. The decision came 6 hours later. David stood once again in the center of the council chamber as Vorneth read the verdict. The Galactic Council has reviewed humanity's offer. We find it insufficient. Earth and all human colonies are hereby ordered to cease expansion immediately. You will submit to council oversight. You will pay reparations for unauthorized colonization. You will surrender all military vessels. And you will accept permanent observer stat. U.S. with no voting rights. These terms are non-negotiable. David felt Rita tense beside him. She had been granted permission to attend as his assistant, and now she witnessed the Council's rejection of everything humanity had hoped for. Observer status, David repeated. For how long? Until the Council determines humanity has sufficiently matured. Approximately 10,000 standard years. Give or take a few centuries. Vorneth's tone suggested this was generous. I see. David looked around the chamber at the 12,000 species watching him. Then I must inform the Council that Earth rejects your terms. The chamber erupted again. This time, Vorneth did not call for silence. He simply stared at David with an expression that the translator interpreted as shocked rage. When the noise finally died down, Vorneth spoke in a voice that made the air vibrate. You reject our mercy? Human, we could erase your species from existence. Our fleets outnumber yours 1,000,000 to 1. Our weapons were old when your ancestors were climbing out of trees. I do not doubt your military superiority, David said calmly. But I also know you will not use it, because the Council has not fought a real war in 40,000 years. Because your member species have grown soft and comfortable. Because the moment you start destroying human colonies, half of your own members will object on moral grounds, and the other half will start wondering if they might be next. Kess floated forward. You gamble with your species' survival on assumptions about our character? No, Ambassador Kess. I gamble on observations of your history. The Council maintains power through bureaucracy, not bloodshed. You assimilate through economic pressure and diplomatic isolation. You have forgotten how to fight because you have not needed to fight. David paused. But humanity remembers. We remember very well. Then you choose war? Rax stood, his metallic fur bristling. We choose independence, David corrected. Earth formally withdraws from all Council-controlled space. We will remove our colonies from any system where you can demonstrate prior claim. We will cease all trade with Council member species. We will establish our own territory and govern ourselves. You will never see or hear from humanity again, unless you choose to contact us as equals. This is madness, Vorneth said. You will isolate yourselves? Throw away the benefits of galactic civilization? What benefits? David's voice rose for the first time. You offer us nothing but subjugation. You want us to wait 10,000 years for the privilege of having opinions you will ignore. You want us to hand over everything we have built and accept whatever scraps you decide to give us. That is not civilization. That is tyranny dressed in diplomatic language. He gestured at the assembled aliens. Humanity spent 10,000 years on Earth, divided into nations and tribes. We fought wars. We made peace. We learned that cooperation between equals creates something stronger than domination by the powerful. And we learned that a cage is still a cage, even if it is lined with silk. So you will leave, Kes said quietly. You will take your ships and your people and vanish into the darkness beyond Council space. Yes. And what of the trade partners you mentioned? The alliances with non-Council species? David smiled. That was a bluff. There are no non-Council species in this region of the galaxy. You made sure of that 90,000 years ago. Humanity will be alone out there. Vornith's scales shifted through several colors. You lied to this council? I used strategy, Chancellor. I gave you an opportunity to avoid conflict by making partnership seem preferable to competition. You rejected that opportunity. Now we move to the next phase. Which is what exactly? Rax demanded withdrawal. David nodded to Rita, who activated a holographic display. It showed every human colony, station, and vessel in Council space. There were thousands of markers spread across hundreds of systems. We have already begun evacuating our most distant settlements. All human personnel and assets will be removed from Council space within 90 days. 90 days? Kess's light flickered. That is impossible. The logistics alone would require coordination beyond anything your species has demonstrated. You underestimate us, Ambassador. We humans are very good at leaving places where we are not wanted. We have had a lot of practice throughout our history. David closed the display. But I want to be very clear about what we are taking with us. He activated another display. This one showed a different kind of data. Technical specifications, research databases, manufacturing processes, medical protocols. Everything on this list was created by human scientists, human engineers, human doctors, human artists. Every patent, every design, every algorithm. We are taking it all with us when we go. Vornith leaned forward. Much of that technology was developed in collaboration with Council species. Collaboration implies partnership, David said. Since you have made it clear that partnership is not available to humanity, we see no reason to leave our innovations behind for you to profit from while we are exiled. You cannot simply delete knowledge from the galaxy. Ambassador Tour spoke for the first time. The insectoid creature's voice buzzed with agitation. Our hospitals use human-designed medical scanners. Our farms use human agricultural techniques. Our ships use human navigation algorithms. Then you should have thought about that before rejecting our offer of cooperation, David replied. We did not force you to adopt our technologies. You chose to use them because they worked better than what you had. Now you will have to choose whether to develop alternatives or to reconsider your treatment of humanity. Kes floated very close to David now. Her crystalline form pulsed with rapid light. I am seeing the timelines, human. I am seeing what happens when you leave. Many of them are dark. Very dark. Then tell the Council to reconsider its decision, David said. It will not, Kes replied. I have already seen that timeline too. Vorneth and the others are too proud to reverse course now. They believe you are bluffing. They believe humanity will come crawling back within a year when you realize how difficult survival is without Council support. David met her crystalline gaze. Then they are wrong. And they will learn exactly how wrong very soon. He turned to face the entire Council. Humanity offers one final courtesy. We will maintain essential systems during our withdrawal. Medical networks, power grids, communication arrays. We will keep them functioning for 90 days to give you time to find replacements. After that, you are on your own. How generous, Vorneth said with heavy sarcasm. More generous than you have been to us, David replied. He bowed again, that same gesture of chosen respect. The Council has made its decision. Humanity will abide by it. But remember this moment, Chancellor. Remember that you had a chance to gain a partner and chose to make an exile instead. I hope that decision brings you comfort in the years ahead. He took Ritta's arm, and they walked toward the exit portal together. Behind them, Vornith called out, "You will regret this, human. Your species will suffer alone in the darkness. And when you finally understand the magnitude of your mistake, when you come begging for readmission to the Council, we will remember your arrogance today." David paused at the threshold. He looked back at the 12,000 species gathered in their magnificent chamber with its impossible physics and beautiful light. "You still do not understand," he said quietly. "We are not the ones who are going to regret this day." Then he stepped through the portal and was gone. In the council chamber, silence fell once more. Then Kess spoke, her voice carrying clearly through the space. "I have looked at all the timelines, all the possible futures, and I must tell you something that none of you want to hear." "What is it?" Vorneth asked, irritation clear in his voice. "The human was right. We are going to regret this, some of us more than others, and there is nothing we can do now to prevent it." "Nonsense," Rax declared. "They are one species, young and weak. We are 12,000, ancient and powerful." "Yes," Kess agreed. "But I wonder which of those traits will matter more in the days ahead." The council adjourned shortly after. Most representatives left confident that they had made the correct decision. A few, the wiser ones, went home with growing unease. None of them truly understood yet what they had just set in motion. The evacuation began immediately. In star systems across council space, human colonies received the order and responded with disciplined efficiency that surprised the alien observers watching them. Leave. On the agricultural world of Haven, 3,000 human farmers began dismantling the irrigation systems they had spent 20 years building. The local Kelvin population, who had come to depend on the surplus food the humans produced, watched in growing alarm. "You cannot leave," pleaded Administrator Gren, his blue skin flushing purple with distress. "Our growing season starts in 2 weeks. We need your equipment. We need your knowledge." "Then you should have spoken up at the council," replied Thomas, the colony leader. He was a weathered man of 60, whose hands bore the calluses of decades of farm work. "We offered partnership. Your species voted with the majority to reject it." "I did not vote," Gren protested. "I was not even consulted. The council representatives make decisions without asking us." Thomas paused in disconnecting a water pump. "Then perhaps you should demand better representation from your government. But that is not humanity's problem anymore. The crops will fail without your systems," Gren said desperately. "Thousands will go hungry. We are leaving detailed instructions on how to operate the basic equipment," Thomas said. "Everything we cannot take with us, we are leaving behind. But the advanced systems, the ones tied to human neural interfaces, those will not work without us. You will have to make do with older technology. But why? Why take things that you could simply leave for us?" Thomas looked at the Kelvin administrator for a long moment. "Because they are ours. Because we built them with our hands and our minds. Because the council decided we were not worthy of equal treatment, so we have decided they are not worthy of our gifts." He returned to his work. "In 90 days, Haven will look very different. I suggest you start preparing." Similar scenes played out across hundreds of worlds. On industrial stations, human engineers began shutting down manufacturing plants they had designed. On medical centers, human doctors trained alien staff to use older diagnostic equipment as the advanced scanners were packed away. On research outposts, human scientists deleted databases and wiped servers clean. The council had expected chaos. They expected humans to drag their feet, to sabotage systems, to make the withdrawal as damaging as possible. Instead, they got something more disturbing. They got perfect professionalism. Humans left everything exactly as they had promised. Essential systems remained functional. Instructions were thorough and clear. Transitions were smooth and organized. But the absence of human presence began to show itself in small ways that accumulated into something larger. On Station Meridian, the massive trading hub that coordinated commerce between 200 systems, the traffic controllers logged off their shifts and did not return. The alien replacements tried to use the same routing algorithms the humans had developed, but something was wrong. Ships that should have had clear paths were getting collision warnings. Cargo that should have taken days to route took weeks. Chief Controller Vex, a six-armed being with excellent spatial reasoning, stared at his console in frustration. The algorithms are not working. The predictions are wrong. Paths that show as clear have unexpected hazards. His assistant checked the system logs. The base code is still functional, but there were daily adjustments. Micro-corrections that the human controllers made based on real-time sensor data and intuitive analysis. They never logged those adjustments. They just made them. So we are using a system that has not been properly updated in 3 weeks, Max realized. And it is degrading in accuracy every day. Can we recreate the adjustment process? Perhaps. In a few months. Maybe a year. Vex looked at the growing backlog of ships waiting for routing clearance. But we need it working now. The communication to the last human controller, a woman named Elizabeth, was brief. We need your help maintaining the system until we can train proper replacements. Elizabeth's response was even briefer. No, we will pay you. Triple standard rates. I am going home. You wanted us gone. We are going. People will die if shipping breaks down. Medical supplies, food, emergency equipment. Elizabeth's face on the screen showed no emotion. Then I suggest you work faster on those replacements. You have 67 days before we cross the council border. After that, you will not be able to contact us even if you change your mind. The transmission ended. Vex sent an urgent message to the council detailing the problem. He received a response 3 days later, telling him to make do with available resources. The council was dealing with more than 2,000 similar complaints from stations and colonies across their territory, in the council chamber. Now, in emergency session, Vorneth addressed the gathered representatives. The human withdrawal is proceeding faster than anticipated. More importantly, the disruptions to our systems are more severe than projected. We need to discuss our options. Options? Rax growled. The options are simple. Force them to stay. Send ships to blockade their colonies and prevent departure. On what legal grounds? Kess asked. We ordered them to submit or leave. They chose to leave. If we now prevent them from leaving, we look tyrannical and hypocritical. Then let them go in good riddance, declared Ambassador Tour. Yes, there will be short-term disruptions. But we will adapt. We survived 90,000 years before humans arrived. We will survive after they are gone. Will we? Kess projected a holographic display. It showed system after system reporting failures, slowdowns, and complications. The humans were more integrated into our civilization than anyone realized. They did not just live among us. They became essential to our infrastructure. Essential is an exaggeration, Vorneth said. They were useful. That is not the same thing. Then explain this. Kess highlighted a medical center on the core world of Trill. This hospital serves 2 million patients. Mortality rates have increased 11% in the 3 weeks since human medical staff departed. Not because the remaining doctors are incompetent, but because the diagnostic equipment is functioning at reduced capacity. So we use older equipment, Tour said. The older equipment has a 40% higher rate of misdiagnoses, Kess replied, which means more people dying of treatable conditions. Multiply that across thousands of medical centers across council space, and you are looking at tens of millions of preventable deaths over the next decade. Silence fell across the chamber. Ambassador Rill, representing a species known for mathematical precision, spoke carefully. I have been running calculations. The economic impact of human withdrawal will be substantial. They represented less than 1% of our population, but contributed to approximately 38% of our innovation and 17% of our essential services. Replacing that will take time and resources we had allocated to other projects. How long? Vornath asked. Conservative estimate? 30 to 50 years to return to current functionality. Optimistic estimate? 20 years. Rill paused. That assumes no other major disruptions, and assumes we can reverse engineer human technologies without their assistance. Can we? Unknown. Human encryption methods are more sophisticated than we anticipated. Many of their technologies include quantum locks that activate when human neural patterns are not detected. We are working on breaking those locks, but progress is slow. Vornath's scales shifted to a troubled gray color. So what you are telling me is that we have crippled our own civilization to punish a species we found inconvenient. I am telling you that we failed to understand our own dependencies, Rill corrected. The humans identified a need, filled it efficiently, and became indispensable before we noticed what was happening. That is not punishment. That is consequence. There must be a solution, Vornath insisted. Some way to maintain access to human innovations without granting them council membership. Kess's crystalline form pulsed with what the translators interpreted as bitter amusement. You mean, can we exploit them without respecting them? No, Chancellor. That ship has departed, literally. She projected another display showing the movement of human vessels. Thousands of ships, all heading in the same direction. Away from council space. Away from the civilization that had rejected them. They are not scattering, Rax observed. They are regrouping, consolidating. Yes, Kess agreed. They are going to establish their own territory, their own civilization. And in a few centuries, we will have a rival power on our border. One that remembers we treated them as inferiors and will have no reason to show us mercy when positions are reversed. That is speculation, Vornath said weakly. That is timeline projection, Kess replied. I have looked at the probabilities. In 63% of futures, humanity becomes a major galactic power within 500 years. In 41%, they surpass us. In 28%, the Council collapses entirely, and human civilization becomes the new dominant force in this region of space. Impossible, Tour declared. They are too young, too inexperienced. They learn quickly, Kess said, faster than any species I have observed. They adapt. They innovate. They see problems and create solutions, while we are still forming committees to study the problems. That is why they spread so fast. That is why they became so essential. And that is why losing them is going to hurt far more than anyone in this chamber wants to admit. The emergency session continued for hours. Arguments were made. Solutions were proposed and rejected. But slowly, reluctantly, a terrible truth settled over the assembled representatives. They had made a mistake. A serious one. And it was too late to fix it. 60 days after the Council's verdict, the first major system failure occurred. The quantum communication network that connected every Council world simultaneously went dark for 17 minutes. When it came back online, 30% of the bandwidth was gone. Messages that once transmitted instantly now took minutes or hours. Some did not transmit at all. The network technicians worked frantically to restore full functionality. After a week of analysis, they discovered the problem. The quantum entanglement protocols that maintained the network had been optimized by human physicists. Those optimizations included recursive algorithms that required constant monitoring and adjust. Meant the humans who had been doing that monitoring for the past century were gone. The algorithms had degraded past the point where non-human technicians could maintain them. The network would continue to function, just not nearly as well as before. On the manufacturing world of Forge, the automated factories that produced 70% of the Council's advanced electronics began to slow down. Production rates dropped 15%, then 20%, then 30%. Engineers traced the problem to the assembly algorithms. They had been designed by human programmers who understood manufacturing efficiency at an intuitive level that proved impossible to replicate. The factories could be reprogrammed with simpler algorithms, but doing so would permanently reduce production capacity in the agricultural sectors. The genetically modified crops that fed billions began showing unexpected problems. Blight resistance was lower than expected. Growth rates were slower. Nutritional content was reduced. The humans who had maintained the genetic databases and made continuous improvements to crop strains were no longer available for consultation. The crops would still grow. They just would not grow as well. The degradation was not catastrophic. No worlds were starving. No stations were going dark. But across every sector of Council civilization, things that had worked smoothly for generations now worked less smoothly. Inefficiencies accumulated. Problems that would have been quickly solved now lingered, and there were still 30 days before the human withdrawal was complete. Vorneth called another emergency session. This time the chamber was not full. Many representatives had returned to their home systems to deal with local crises. "We need to discuss recalling the humans," Vorneth said without preamble. "The damage to our infrastructure is exceeding projections." "Recalling them how?" Kess asked. "We cannot compel them to return. We have no authority over them once they leave Council space. Then we negotiate. We offer them better terms. Limited membership. Voting rights on matters that affect them directly. Technology sharing agreements. They already offered us partnership," Rill pointed out. "We rejected it." "What makes you think they will accept less favorable terms now?" "Because they need us," Vorneth insisted. "They are young and isolated. They require the resources and knowledge that Council membership provides. Do they?" Kess projected images from the human evacuation. Massive colony ships being constructed in orbit around Earth. New technologies being deployed that had never been shared with the Council. Human vessels moving with a coordination and efficiency that suggested advanced planning. "Look at them, Chancellor. Do they look like a species in desperate need of our help?" The images showed humans working with focused intensity. Building. Preparing. Not for surrender, but for independence. "They are bluffing," Rax said. "Putting on a show of strength to improve their negotiating position." "I do not think they are," Kess replied quietly. "I have been monitoring human communications. They are not talking about returning. They are talking about what comes next. About building something new. About proving the Council wrong." She paused. "They are motivated, angry, united. That is a dangerous combination." Ambassador Tour shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps we acted hastily. Perhaps we should have negotiated more before delivering our verdict." "Perhaps," Vorneth agreed bitterly. "But we cannot change the past. We can only try to salvage the future. I propose we send a delegation to Earth, a formal apology, and offer to restart negotiations. Whatever it takes to bring them back. And if they refuse?" Rill asked. "Then we accept the consequences and adapt as best we can." The vote was called. The measure passed with 72% support. A delegation was assembled. The fastest ship in the Council fleet was prepared. and a message was sent ahead to Earth requesting an audience. With human leadership. Response came 3 days later that it was from David. Kane, the Galactic Council is welcome to send representatives to Earth. We will receive them with appropriate diplomatic courtesy. However, I must be clear that humanity's decision to withdraw is final. We are not negotiating a return to Council space. If the Council wishes to discuss future relations between our two civilizations, we are willing to have that conversation. But it will be a conversation between equals, not a negotiation for our readmission. If those terms are acceptable, you may proceed. If not, please do not waste our time or yours. Vorneth read the message 3 times, his scales shifting through colors that indicated confusion, anger, and something that might have been respect. Between equals, he repeated. They truly believe they can stand apart from the Council, that they can survive and even thrive in isolation. Maybe they can, Kes suggested. They have resources we never inventoried, technologies they never shared, plans they made long before the trial in case things went wrong. The humans did not just react to our verdict. They were prepared for it. You think they wanted this outcome? Rax sounded incredulous. I think they considered it a likely possibility and planned accordingly, Kes replied. David Kane is a strategist. He would have prepared for multiple scenarios. The offer of partnership was genuine, but he had alternatives ready if we rejected it. We played exactly into the scenario he anticipated. So we are being manipulated, Vorneth said. We are experiencing the consequences of our choices, Kes corrected. The humans did not force us to reject them. We did that ourselves. They are simply responding rationally to our decision. The delegation departed 2 days later. 3 ambassadors representing the most influential Council factions. They carried authorization to negotiate nearly any terms necessary to restore human cooperation. The journey to Earth took 5 days. When they arrived, they found a system transformed. New orbital stations surrounded the planet. Defense platforms that had not existed 3 months ago. Ships of designs the Council had never seen. And on Earth itself, construction on a scale that suggested massive mobilization. The human delegation that met them was led not by David Kane, but by an older woman named President Rebecca Torres. She received them in a simple conference room rather than an ornate chamber. The message was clear. Earth had no need to impress them. Welcome to Earth, Torres said. Please, be seated. We have much to discuss. The Council ambassadors settled into chairs designed for various body types. Vorneth spoke first. Madam President, the Council recognizes that errors were made in our initial judgment. We wish to discuss revised terms for humanity's integration into galactic civilization. Torres smiled. It was not a warm expression. Ambassador, I think you misunderstand the purpose of this meeting. Humanity is not interested in integration. That opportunity has passed. We are here to discuss what kind of relationship, if any, will exist between the Council and the independent human sphere. Independent human sphere? Vorneth's scales darkened. You claim territory? We claim the right to exist without Council interference, Torres replied. We are establishing colonies in unclaimed systems. We are building our own infrastructure. We are creating our own civilization. You are welcome to recognize that reality or ignore it, but it will proceed regardless of your preference. The second ambassador, representing the Trilari, spoke. You cannot simply declare independence from the galactic order. There are laws, protocols, that we never agreed to follow, Torres reminded her. You keep forgetting that. Humanity never signed your treaties, never accepted your authority. You tried to impose it retroactively, and we declined. That is not rebellion. That is refusing to be conquered through bureaucracy. The third ambassador, a Kelvin elder, tried a different approach. Please understand our position. The Council exists to maintain stability. When a new species appears and expands rapidly, we must ensure they do not threaten that stability. Then you should have approached us as partners from the beginning, Torres replied. You should have explained your concerns and worked with us to address them. Instead, you waited until we had established ourselves, then tried to force us into submission. You treated us like children who need to be disciplined rather than adults who deserved respect. She stood and walked to a window overlooking Earth. My species spent thousands of years fighting over who got to control whom. We learned eventually that cooperation works better than domination. Apparently, the Council has not learned that lesson yet. Vorneth felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Desperation. What will it take to restore cooperation between our peoples? Torres turned back to face him. Recognition, respect, and restitution. Explain. Recognition that humanity is a sovereign civilization with the right to govern itself. Respect for our territory and our decisions. And restitution for the damage your verdict has caused to our people and our plans. Torres returned to her seat. We had trade agreements with dozens of species. Colony partnerships. Re-seer. CH collaborations. Your Council's verdict destroyed all of that. Species that wanted to work with us were forced to cut ties or face Council sanctions. That has cost us years of progress and countless opportunities. We want compensation. The ambassadors looked at each other. This was not the negotiation they had expected. If we provide these things, Vorneth asked carefully, what does humanity offer in return? Torres smiled again. This time it was slightly warmer. The same thing we offered before. Access to our technologies. Trade opportunities, cultural exchange, cooperation on matters of mutual interest, but as equals, not as subjects seeking approval from masters. And the technologies you are removing from Council space? The Trilari ambassador asked. Will those be available for relicensing? Some of them, for a fair price, with proper attribution and patent protections. Just like any other independent civilization would expect. Torres folded her hands on the table. You have a choice, ambassadors. You can recognize humanity as an equal and work with us. Or you can continue trying to force us back into the box you prepared for us. But I warn you, we are very good at thinking outside of boxes. It is one of our defining traits. The meeting continued for hours. The Council ambassadors made offers. Torres countered. Compromises were proposed and refined. And slowly, gradually, a new framework began to emerge. Not integration, not submission, but something the Council had never really done before. Partnership between equals. The Treaty of Earth was signed 92 days after the Council's original verdict. It was not a surrender. It was not a triumph. It was a mutual recognition that two civilizations would benefit more from cooperation and from conflict. Under its terms, humanity was recognized as a sovereign power with full rights to self-governance and territorial expansion into unclaimed systems. In exchange, humans agreed to honor Council claims to existing territories and to participate in joint security arrangements in border regions. Technology sharing would occur through licensing agreements with fair compensation. Trade would flow freely between human and Council space. And most importantly, humanity received 3 seats on the Galactic Council with full voting rights. It was, by any measure, a stunning diplomatic victory for a species that had been spacefaring for only 3 centuries. In the Council chamber. Now with 3 additional seats reserved for human representatives. Vorneth read the final treaty ratification. His voice carried less arrogance than it once had. The Galactic Council recognizes the sovereignty of the human confederacy and welcomes their participation in galactic affairs. Let this mark a new era of cooperation and mutual prosperity. David Kane, now officially Ambassador Kane, stood to address the chamber. Beside him sat President Torres and General Marcus Webb, the military leader who had coordinated the human withdrawal. The Confederacy accepts the Council's recognition and looks forward to working with all species represented here to build a better future. We come not to conquer or to submit, but to contribute. We offer our knowledge freely to those who respect us and our friendship to those who earn it. The treaty was activated. Across the galaxy, systems that had been degrading for 3 months suddenly began functioning properly again. Human technicians, now operating under contract rather than occupation, returned to their posts. Medical centers came back online at full capacity. Factories resumed optimal production. Communication networks regained their lost bandwidth. The relief was palpable. But so was the lesson. In a private meeting after the ceremony, Cass approached David Kane. You planned this from the beginning, did not you? The withdrawal, the degradation, the treaty negotiations. All of it, David smiled. We planned for multiple scenarios. This was one of them. How did you know we would come to terms? Because you are not stupid, Ambassador Kess. Arrogant, yes. Set in your ways, certainly. But not stupid. Eventually, you would realize that cooperation benefits everyone, and that forcing submission only breeds resentment. We just had to make the lesson expensive enough that it would stick. Many people suffered during the withdrawal, Kess said. Some died. Does that not trouble you? David's smile faded. Of course it troubles me, but less than the alternative would have. If we had accepted your original terms, humanity would have suffered for 10,000 years under Council oversight. Our growth would have been stunted. Our potential would have been wasted. And eventually, we would have either rebelled violently or withered into irrelevance. He met her crystalline gaze. I chose 3 months of disruption over millennia of subjugation. I stand by that choice. Kess pulsed with thoughtful light. You are right that the Council has grown complacent. We forgot that civilization requires constant renewal. We forgot that young species bring energy and innovation we have lost. You have reminded us of that. Painfully, but effectively. Then let us make sure the pain was worth it, David said. Let us build something together that neither of our civilizations could build alone. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to stabilize. Human technologies flowed back into Council space, now properly licensed and attributed. Council resources and knowledge flowed to human colonies, accelerating their development. Joint research projects began to produce innovations that neither side could have achieved independently, but the relationship was different now. Humans did not serve the Council. They worked with it. Species that had ignored humanity before now sought them out as partners. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges flourished. And slowly, the memory of the Council's mistake began to fade, except for those who remembered. On Earth, in a museum dedicated to the crisis, as historians called it, a display showed the original Council verdict alongside the Treaty of Earth. Visitors could read both documents and see how dramatically the terms had changed. The display's title was simple: The Cost of Underestimation. In the Council Archives, a sealed record contained Kess's timeline projections from the original trial. It showed all the possible futures she had seen, including the ones where the Council's arrogance led to its collapse, and the ones where humanity became the dominant galactic power. Few had access to those records. Fewer still discussed what they revealed. But they remained a warning to future generations about the danger of judging potential by current appearance. And in a small office on Station Meridian, now fully restored to optimal function, Controller Vex kept a personal memento from the crisis. It was the last message he had received from Elizabeth, the human controller who had refused to help when systems were failing. It said simply, "You had your chance to work with us. You chose otherwise. Live with your choice." Vex looked at it sometimes when dealing with difficult situations. It reminded him of an important truth that the Council had forgotten, and that humanity had forcibly re-taught them. Respect must be earned through mutual recognition, not demanded through superior force. Partnership creates more value than domination. And the most dangerous mistake anyone can make is underestimating those who seem weak simply because they are young. The galaxy had learned that lesson. The hard way. On Earth, David King retired from diplomatic service and returned to the university where he had once taught political science. His students would sometimes ask him about the crisis, about the gamble he took, about whether he had been afraid, terrified, he would admit. "Every day I woke up wondering if this would be the day the Council called our bluff and sent their fleets to force us back. Every night I went to sleep knowing that millions of lives depended on my calculations being correct." "But you were right," a student observed. "The Council negotiated." "This time," David replied, "but the universe is large, and we will face many more challenges. The lesson is not that humanity is superior, or that the Council was wrong about everything. The lesson is that civilization works best when everyone has a voice and everyone is respected. The Council forgot that. We reminded them. And now, if we are wise, we will remember it ourselves as we continue to grow and encounter new species and new challenges." He would look out the window at the stars visible, even in daylight, from Earth's surface. Out there, somewhere, is another young species beginning their journey into space. And someday, they will encounter either the Council or us, or both. What kind of welcome will they receive? Will we treat them as equals or as inferiors? Will we learn from our own experience or repeat the Council's mistakes? What do you think will happen? Students would ask. David would smile. "I think humanity has a long memory and a strong sense of irony. I think we will remember how it felt to be underestimated and dismissed. And I think we will choose to do better." He paused. "But we will have to choose it consciously, every time, with every new encounter. That is the real challenge. Not gaining respect, but giving it freely to others, even when we do not have to." The students would leave his lectures thinking about those words, about the responsibility that came with power, about the importance of remembering where you came from, even as you reached toward where you were going. And across the galaxy, both in Council space and in the growing human sphere, civilization continued. Not perfectly, not without conflicts, but with a better understanding that strength comes not from forcing others into submission, but from building networks of mutual respect and cooperation. The Council had learned the magnitude of its mistake. But more importantly, it had learned from it. And humanity, still young and still growing, had learned something equally valuable, that sometimes the greatest victory is not in defeating your opponent, but in transforming them into your partner. The galaxy was better for it. And the future, while uncertain, held more promise than it had in 90,000 years. Because finally, after all that time, the galactic civilization had remembered how to grow. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.